Hey guys, my name's Justin, and today I'm going to show you how to add a factory cruise control to this 97 Mazda Miata. Not all first generations Miatas came with factory cruise control installed, but a lot of them still have the wiring necessary to install a factory unit. Make sure you check for the harnesses on your car before you buy a factory unit to put in your car. I'll show you the few harnesses to look for to make sure that you can install a factory unit in your car without any extra wiring. First harness to look for is right behind the headlight on the driver's side. There should be a white connection right here with 4 terminals. It comes out of the same loom that has the blue connector on it. This will plug into the servo for the cruise control that will mount right here. If you don't have this harness, you're pretty much out of luck and unlikely to have any of the rest of the harnesses as well. So check this one first. Inside on the dash, this blank button right here is where the cruise control power on and off switch goes. If you don't have cruise control, you'll have a blank. But behind this blank, there is or should be a connector that will plug into your on and off switch. So let's look behind this blank underneath from the dash and see if we can see if we have the connector there to plug into our factory unit. Okay, looking up from underneath the dash, you can see that white connector in the corner there. That is the connector for the power switch behind that blank. So we do have this connector, and that's a positive. If you don't have this connector, you're probably missing part of the dash wiring harness. So that will make it quite difficult to install a factory unit without it. There's 2 more connectors to look for under the dash. One of them is in the footwell to the upper left. Up in there, there should be a large, like a 20-pin connector that will go to the computer for the cruise control that will mount in there. And there is also a 2-pin connector above the brake pedal that will connect to a switch that we install. So let's look for those 2 connectors. Okay, over there in the corner, there is that white connector pin, and that is just taped to another part of the loom just hanging out of the way. That is the harness for the ECU, or the computer for the cruise control. So look for that connector. The last connector to look for is on top of the brake pedal here that I'm moving. There is a momentary switch that is bottoming out on the brake pedal right there, and there is one connector out of the back of it, and then there should be a second unused connector with the pink and yellow wires that's hanging right there to the right. That is an unused connector in cars without cruise control, and we will be using that on a new switch with the factory cruise control. So if you've identified all of the harnesses necessary to do a plug-and-play system for a factory unit, consider yourself lucky, and let me show you next which parts you're going to need off of a donor car, or that you'll need to purchase off the internet to put a complete factory system in your car. These are the parts you're going to need to install a factory unit on your car. The big ones, this is the servo controller that goes under the hood. I also need the hose that goes to the vacuum line, and it's also got a cable that connects to the gas pedal with this little white connector. On the gas pedal, you're going to need to get either a new whole assembly from the cruise control car, or just take the pedal off. There's a couple of bushings and 2 studs here, and also this bracket that is specific to the cruise control car, and that will attach on here. It'll attach to the pedal and also to the end of the cable from the servo, and that will set your cruise control on the pedal itself. So you'll need those 2 parts. Make sure you get the bushings and the little circular clips that are on the parts. The next is the whole clock spring and assembly with the wiper arms and the headlight switch. You can either get the whole assembly and replace the whole unit, or you can try and just do the lever arm with the cruise control. Just swap that out. That's what I'm going to try and do, is just swap out the arm itself and not the whole assembly. The last few parts you're going to need are the on-off switch, which goes in place of that blank on the dash, and there's the connector that we saw from behind. Also going to need the brake switch off of the cruise control car. This is just like the brake switch in your current car, but it has this extra 2-pin connector, which will use that harness underneath the dash to plug in there. And then just make sure you grab any of the hardware and little bushings that you take off when you get the cruise control kit from the car. Alright, let's get started. I'm going to start with the mounting the servo in place underneath the hood. The servo just attaches with 3 existing bolts, one on the airbox, one down there, and one right here. So we'll bolt those 3 up. Okay, so for the servo, I got the 3 bolts attached. The vacuum hose routes along the air intake to a spot in the manifold there. And then for the throttle cable, it just plugs in to the bracket right there. And then there's a grommet that you can remove and put the throttle cable in through the firewall. And we'll see it on the other side down by the gas pedal. Okay, next I'm going to replace the gas pedal, so I'm going to take the throttle cable off the top of the pedal there, that yellow little ring. I'll pull that off. Then I will pull this little clip off of the shaft that goes through the spring. There's a clip on the left side. Pull that off. I'll unhook the spring from the gas pedal, and then I should be able to slide that unit out. Alright, so I got the gas pedal off, and it was a royal pain because this little clip that holds on the gas pedal right here is impossible to get off. I ended up getting it off by prying the bracket that this is attached to in a little bit, and that allowed me to get a screwdriver behind the back side of this clip and then pry it off. This thing's on there pretty good, so tried getting behind it with a screwdriver or maybe a chisel or something to pry it off. But now that that's off, let's see how the other one fits in there. Alright, here's the differences between the cruise control and non-cruise control gas pedals. This is the one I just took out of the car with no cruise control. It has the one shaft here with the clip, and the spring came off of that. We're going to use the spring on the cruise control pedal. Cruise control pedal has the same shaft. These 2 bushings, I don't think we'll be using these 2 bushings on the assembly in the car. These must be used on the cruise control assembly that's in a cruise control car. So I don't think we'll use the bushings. This one's got a circular clip on it though, so that'll be easier than that piece of crap. And then it's got this other shaft up here with another bushing, and that bushing will ride in this other lever that gets attached to the pedal assembly underneath. And then the line for the gas, the throttle cable goes in here, and the cruise control cable from the servo goes in there. So let's reinstall this in the assembly underneath the dash by putting this shaft in with the clips and this shaft in underneath. Alright, I got the pedal in for the cruise control. It was pretty hard getting in that little lever there that hooks up to the servo for the cruise control. There's a couple bushings to put in, a circular clip, and then a bushing on the back side in there that hooks up to the gas pedal. All have to go in together. If I did this again, I would recommend taking out just the whole pedal assembly. I think it's only held in by a few bolts. I'm not sure 100% on that, but there's pretty much no room to work up in there with your fingers, and so I think it might be easier if you just took the whole thing out. Probably go a lot quicker than what it did, but it's in. I think next we're going to move on to replacing the brake switch for the cruise control one. Okay, here's the difference between the cruise control and non-cruise control brake switch. This is the one I just took out of my car without cruise control. It's got two connectors, and it threads in to a bracket right above the brake pedal, and this little momentary switch is what triggers the brake lights when you step on the brake pedal. This is the one for a cruise control car. It's got two connectors there and then an additional 2-pin connector up top. That'll go for the cruise control, or to the cruise control computer, and that will trigger the brakes and shut off the cruise control when you hit the brake pedal. So we're just going to thread this one in and set the nut there. Make sure you get it adjusted correctly so that when you step on the brake, just after you step on the brake, the lights come on. So you can turn this in and out to get that set perfectly. Okay, so I got the new connector on. It's got the original connector with the green and white wires, and then the additional connector with the pink and yellow wires. So that's it for the brake switch. Let's move on next to the connector for the uh, computer. There it is in the back corner. So we'll get the computer mounted back there and plugged in. Okay, there's the computer mounted in place and plugged in. It's just mounted with one 10mm bolt there at the bottom. There is a threaded hole already in the body for it. And that's pretty much it for the computer. Okay, to get toward the stock over here to replace it, I'm just going to start by removing all the plastic shrouds around the steering column to get better access. Next, I'm going to remove those two 12mm bolts that are holding the steering column up. That'll just give me a little more play and drop the steering column a little bit to get to the stock assembly screws that hold that in. Okay, now that I got some room to work with by getting the steering column loose, I'm going to remove two Phillips screws. One's located right here, the other one right here, and that should loosen up this stock assembly. Okay, I'm going to take my new combination switch with the cruise twist function on it and the extra cable and try and fish that back in the way the old one came out. Okay, and reinstall the two screws. Alright, the new stock is in and it's moving through its position, so that's good. Now I'm just going to put those two 12mm bolts back up to bolt the column back in place, and then I'm going to just run this wire along the rest of the loom and zip tie it on there, and then we'll go find the connector for this underneath and plug it in, and that should be the last step. Okay, I just ran the little wire harness from the combination switch, zip tied it along the wire, and it's this white one right here. And actually the factory plug-in is just not too far below it, not being used. So this is the other end of the switch for the combination switch. So I'll just plug those two together, and that should be it for the combination switch. Well, I got the shrouding put back together and the cover underneath the steering column bolted back up. So everything should be good to go. Everything's plugged in. So I'm gonna go give it a try. So I went to test out the cruise control the other day, and it kind of worked. Let me show you what didn't work on it. So I can't get the power to stay on. When I push the power button, the light comes on, but as soon as I let go, it shuts off. So I can only use the cruise if I hold down the button. If I hold down the button and then set the cruise control, it works. But as soon as I let go of the button, the cruise control shuts off. So I think that is a computer problem. So that computer we plugged in down there in the footwell probably has a relay in it, and that's not getting switched and staying on when I push the power button. So I got another computer here, and let's switch it out for the other one and see if that makes a difference. Alright, I just switched the computers, and check it out. The light stays on. Let's go try it out again. Alright, it works. Hope you guys found that helpful. Have a good one.